What's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. If you've listened before, I know that you know I love to talk about mindset and mental health, and it's crucial to have our mentality right in order to be the most effective we can possibly be when it comes to working toward our goals. And so I'm extremely excited to dive into the topic today with our guest. And before I introduce her, as always, I want to say thank you for tuning in and allowing us to be a part of your journey. Truly grateful just to be able to share the knowledge, to have great guests to share. And so I want to remind you, every day is an opportunity to grow. So make sure you find the takeaways that you can apply in your life and act on it. Don't just sit on it. Don't just listen today and then walk away and go about doing what you're already doing. Take something away from it that can actually help you. And I know today you will find that. The only ask is that you like, subscribe, share it with somebody that you know can help. Would also love to have you join the conversation. So if there's something that you take away from the day that you have a comment on or a question, drop it in the comments on whatever platform you're listening to join the conversation. And then the last thing is I want to remind you, go to the website. There is a free download of the 5-step process to goaltending worksheet so that you can start putting your goal to paper. Sign up for a free account, access to the free download. It's that easy. And I want you to have that because we spend too much time keeping our goals in our head. And it's time to put it on paper so that you actually have something tangible to look at and to start taking action toward. Now, without further ado, our guest today is a therapist with 9 years of experience in the industry. She's done work toward reunifying families, overcoming substance abuse, and mental health healing from trauma and racial equity. She's trained as an EMDR therapist and places a primary focus on somatic experiencing. She started her own practice in July this year and works with clients to develop a more intimate knowledge of their nervous system and to help with self-regulation. Crucial. On top of all that, she's a dedicated wife, a mother, a friend. Alaina Newman, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
So truly thank you for taking the time today.
Absolutely.
Excited for what we're going to get into because in my opinion, like mental work, mental health, mentality, number one thing to work on when it comes to pursuing your goals, to get your mind right.
Right.
So just start off telling us a little bit about you and your background.
You did a really nice job. It's always interesting to hear back about yourself. But right. I think, it's so interesting. I came into mental health accidentally almost. I thought I was going to be a doctor, like Grey's Anatomy level doctor, only to find that I did not have the stamina for that work. And in college, I had some familial issues that required some extra support that family just couldn't give to me. So I sought out counseling on campus, and that started the trajectory of like, oh, healing doesn't just come from a hospital room or an OR. Like healing can come through small incremental changes daily. Yeah. Just being mindful, connected to the present. Things can happen. And so from that moment, I was like, oh, I can affect change in a really good way.
Right.
And that just started the trajectory to here I am 9 years later with my own practice, doing the work with people every day.
Yeah. I love that. I also love the small incremental changes.
Yeah.
Because I think that one thing people get overwhelmed by is looking at the big picture, looking at a goal or even a mental health challenge and seeing the whole thing and just being intimidated by how big it is. And when you really break it down, it's small changes. It's a little bit of progress each day. And then that compounds over time.
Exactly. Just developing more capacity, whether it's more capacity for joy, more capacity for discomfort, but just really, expanding what you can handle.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I want to get into the kind of therapy that you do.
Okay.
Because I was just recently even introduced to these kinds of therapy.
Yeah.
I was reading a book and like it popped up. I was like, what is this? You know? And then like when we met and talked and I learned about it, I was like, I was just reading about that. I was like, this is so interesting because it's not even something I had heard of before. So I'm going to be learning along with you all today and getting into this. Can you just tell us a little bit about EMDR and somatic experiencing?
Yeah. So EMDR is short for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So all of it is centered around we experience trauma. Folks experience trauma, whether you want to consider it a big thing or maybe there's these small incremental things that have built over time that have had this impact on how you see yourself in the world. Maybe I think I'm not worthy or I'm bad, right? Maybe these are messages we've received over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we internalize those things as true. And so with EMDR, it's this idea that through bilateral stimulation of our brain, we can help to break down those negative neural networks, right? I'm bad. I'm not enough. I can't do. And we work toward developing a more affirmed response. So I am capable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good enough, right? I can do things. I can do hard things even, right?
Right.
And so EMDR, it uses a variety of methodologies to do that, but for most folks, they either use eye movement, literally, where you
Mm-hmm.
titrate your eyes left to right, through tapping, through light, through machines that like you hold in your hands. But it's just this
Okay.
idea that it takes the pressure off of the client to have to always come with words.
Okay.
And it allows you just to exist in the space and gives your brain an opportunity to do some of the work without all of the pressure of having to articulate yourself through like talk therapy.
Right, because it can be difficult to talk
It can be a
about a trauma
lot.
or like to express that out loud or even find the right words sometimes.
Exactly.
You just said something that I didn't even think of before.
Yeah.
So I think maybe before we get into somatic experiencing
Yeah.
too, let's talk about trauma
Okay.
specifically, just to like provide some clarity on what trauma actually is, because I was kind of thinking of it as a lot of times like a specific event, but you just said that things can happen over time that can compound to like a trauma.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't thought of it that way before. So let's just talk a little bit about trauma
Yeah.
to be on the same page on that.
Okay. So you'll hear people talk about big T trauma or little T trauma. So big T traumas are probably those things you're thinking about, right? Abuses, accidents, death, maybe.
Right.
Maybe there's grief. There's these big things that we can see
Mm-hmm.
that, a lot of folks will call big T trauma. It's left a lasting impact on how we see ourselves in the world, how we process information, how our bodies respond to things. Little T traumas could be small things like maybe you have a teacher who just never calls on you in class. You raise your hand to ask questions, but they never really call on you, or you find yourself on the back end of a lot of criticism and you're not really sure
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. And so there's these messages that you're receiving. And over time, it can cause you to believe that these things about you are true.
Mm-hmm.
And it can create dysregulation in your nervous system. It can cause you to maybe withdraw, right? Maybe I go
Yeah.
into myself because I don't trust that the environment I'm in can handle my emotions or what I'm bringing, or maybe it causes me to lash out
Right.
because I don't know how else to get that need met. And
Okay.
so they can be just little things that happen. Maybe you have a parent who forgets you at school one day, and it happens the first time, and then it happens a second time. And maybe they pick you up a couple times, but then it happens a third time.
Right.
Right. And that leaves this lasting impact of like, how do you keep forgetting me? Right. Just in those small things. And the parent, it's not intentional, right? Maybe I got late for work. Maybe I forgot this was soccer day at school and I went home and I needed to come back, right?
Oh, yeah.
Innocent.
Because we're all humans. We make mistakes.
Right. We should never be perfect. You can't be perfect. But it leaves an impression. And so then it leaves that individual with a need to have to figure out how to handle that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. No,
Yeah.
that's a good explanation,
Okay.
and I just like that because I hadn't thought of it that way before. So I always love getting new insight into something that
Yeah.
kind of helps
Yeah.
open your mind a little bit more to like, wow, it doesn't just have to be some big like life altering event. It can be a compounding of things.
Yeah.
So somatic experiencing. We talked EMDR.
Yeah, that's right.
EMDR. I don't want to mix my letters up.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So somatic experiencing, what is that? Because that's what your practice is focused toward, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually have training this weekend, so that'll be fun.
Woo!
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be fun. So somatic experiencing is this modality that was developed, I don't know how long ago, by a man named Peter Levine. I always mess up his last name.
Okay.
But he's like studied different cultures and aspects, and he's like put together through his learning this way of how to better help you be with yourself. And so I guess if we were to break that down, we were just talking about trauma.
Uh-huh.
And so what happens is when we experience these things, we have a nervous system, our fight or flight system, right? That's what people call it.
Yeah.
And so it's what helps you know, don't walk down the scary alley at 3 a.m., right? But when we experience trauma, sometimes it can cause that system to be dysregulated. It can cause us not to quite be able to tell, is the danger I'm anticipating or responding to real? Peter talks about it being tigers in the room. Is the tiger in the room real? Right? I can perceive it, I'm sensing it, but is it actually there? And so the work of somatics is really just helping people learn to be with what's happening and helps them to renegotiate how they then have to react to what's happening or respond. Just opens folks up to, the way I like to tell clients is, we want to open you up to be able to have choice. Because once our survival system kicks in, its job is to keep us alive.
Right.
It has to keep us alive. Now, do we do that through fighting back? Do we do that through running away? But when we're dysregulated, we never quite respond the way we need to.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And so the hope is, through this work of being with your body, learning how to really just renegotiate some of those things, you can manage discomfort in a better way.
So is it a like a physical type of therapy, or because we mentioned talk therapy? Yeah. Is there a lot of talk involved? Is there like some more physical, or how does that work?
It depends on where you are in your training, in your development. So I'm technically a somatic experiencing practitioner in training. So right now I'm learning how to utilize imagery, words, sensation, to help a person become better acquainted with their nervous system.
Okay.
Through time, you can learn what they call touch skills, which is where a person can get on a table and then you help them, you move through parts of their body, maybe like their adrenals or kidneys, with helping manage that cortisol, or you can work with their brainstem to kind of help regulate that. And so that's a little further down the line for me, but yes, there can be touch involved. There's also different activities. You can use exercise balls. There's all these materials just to help you be able to have a better sense of yourself and how you can navigate the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense in terms of like where you talked about it helps with self-regulation and connecting that way. Is EMDR and somatic experiencing, is this something good for everyone, or is there a specific type of person or like trauma that is best for dealing with or approaching?
It's a good question. And I have found it is more about the client.
Okay.
So with EMDR, you don't have to just do this like free flow processing. It can be very like directed. I have 2 small kids, and so my oldest gets anxious sometimes. And so we've utilized tapping before, just to be like, we have to do this thing. Let's work through that. Let's work it out. And so the tapping is really just this immediate thing that helps her kind of like check it and we move on. So it really depends on the client and what they have the capacity for. And I always encourage folks to find a therapist that you like, find a therapist you can connect with, that you can be in a share space with. And then you all just try things, and then you'll start to figure out what you like. Like I have clients, I started with EMDR. By the end of it, we were doing all kinds of other things because they were like, nope, that's not where I am.
Right.
I've got clients we've started with SE and they're like, too much, too much, too much, too much. And it's like, okay, let's figure it out. That's the whole point, right? Is to give you the ability to have choice again.
Yeah.
And so that starts even in the therapy room. So hopefully that answers the question, but I think it depends on the person more than the event sometimes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And like, I think that it's really good too to mention, like, the find a therapist you're comfortable with. There's a lot of therapists out there
Absolutely.
that do these things. So the most important thing is like finding someone that you can be comfortable with, that you're able to open up with.
Yep.
Because that's the purpose of therapy. Like, you have to have some trust in the room with that person.
Exactly.
To be able to like open up and make progress.
Exactly. And trust is built over time, and that's okay too. But there's got to be a little something.
You don't show up day one and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna let it all out. You know,
we got it. It's like, no, takes time, and that's okay. But that's part of the process too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like talking about results a lot.
Okay.
You know, can you talk about, and if you're able to share any kind of like stories vaguely, awesome.
Yeah.
But can you talk about any kinds of results that you've seen or that this type of therapy aims to produce?
Yeah. It's so funny because I feel like I'm probably a huge testament to how this works. So I believe every therapist should have a therapist. That's important. Because my stuff cannot be my client stuff. We got to know the difference.
Right.
And so I personally see a somatic practitioner, and I will never forget the very first day we started with touch skills. She puts me up on the table, not really sure what to expect. And we're laying there and she's just talking to me about my day. Like, what else you got going on today? What's happening? I'm just talking. And next thing I know, she's doing a little work around my kidneys, just gently touching them, offering them support. That's it. And I just start noticing like tears, just tears rolling. And I was like, and I told her, I was like, hey, I'm crying. Don't know why, but I'm crying. And this was day one. I had no language for what was happening for me.
Right.
And I can say now, as I've progressed, maybe this is 3 or 4 years worth of work, I'm in a place now where I may not always know what to do with it, but I can say, there's this rumbling in my stomach and it is telling me I need to take a second. And so I've learned to just stop.
Right.
Just honor that. And that's probably a really easy example. I have a client now, like you asked for vague examples, and I was like, I have a client now. We've been seeing each other maybe 2 years. I think a lot of their trauma was a pre-verbal state, because when we attempt to do some work, they can't talk.
Okay.
You can see them just stop. And it's like, okay. And so it took me a minute to catch on, but I want to say we had a session last week, and this was the first time in 2 years I asked, do you notice anything? And they were able to say, I'm scared. It feels like someone's with me, but I don't want them to be.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. And so we just were able to go through this process of like, what would protection be like? If you could be protected, what would that be like? And all of a sudden, a person who we've been really fighting for them to develop language was able to actually look up, make eye contact, and go like, they're still here, but my protection is too. And that was just this amazing moment of like, okay, look at how you get to be here and hold this. And it didn't require a lot from you. You said what you needed. We got it. And that's it. So that was just another moment. It just felt so beautiful of like, look at that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
It's crazy.
It's powerful,
right?
and it's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Those things. And so part of today is to encourage people to talk or to seek
Absolutely.
help of some kind, if they need it, or not even sure, like to
Yeah.
at least like seek and try to find that. So I'm going to be vulnerable
Okay.
and share a story of a trauma for me,
Okay.
just to talk about the importance of communication when it comes to trauma, and to hopefully encourage other people to either find help or to
Yeah.
openly communicate
Yeah.
that. So about a year ago, and I was with a group of friends of mine. We met up for one of their weddings, so a joyous occasion.
Right.
And we are out actually the day of the wedding celebrating, and we got jumped by a large group of guys, like,
Wow.
and it was like pretty bad. One of my friends got a broken jaw. One of my friends was unconscious temporarily and uh, walked away with a concussion. Another one also got a concussion.
Mm-hmm.
I had a laceration to the back of my head and some minor bumps and bruises.
Right.
But after the hospital visits and the checkups, we came together. Uh, and what was weird is like it was a very unfortunate and what I call a traumatic event for
Yeah.
myself. But we all kind of responded with feelings of gratitude, where we were thankful that it was not worse because we recognized that like we could have very well not came home.
Yeah.
And so we were thankful to be alive. We were thankful to have each other and to also have families to go back home to.
Right.
That we were able to go back home to our families. Um, and so surrounded by love from our families, we communicated with one another. We continued to like share how we felt about the event and talk about it. And that's what I like kind of wanted to bring emphasis toward, is that for our situation, for what happened,
Mm-hmm.
I know that it helped us to openly communicate. And we talked about sometimes like communication is either not possible or it's like very hard, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, but either to find a way to communicate or find some kind of support system or find somebody who can help work through it. So would you just talk about your thoughts when it comes to openly talking about traumas that we experience? Any tips on like the best way to have those type of discussions or to like just approach it?
Yeah. That's a big question. So I think even, and if you're okay with us, if you're okay with me kind of vibing here, like even watching you retell your story, you could notice a visible change in your physiology, right? Like even recounting the details and going through the hard part of it, you could see the activation. But then as you made it to the part of your story about gratitude,
Mhm.
you were able, we could see it start to settle a bit, right? As I
Yeah.
reflect on like, I have community here and I have people here and I have things here and I'm a good person regardless of these other people not seeing my value in doing this, right?
Right.
And so the thing that I've really had to learn myself and start with is sometimes we don't actually have to start with the trauma. Sometimes we should start with the gratitude, or
Hmm.
sometimes we should start with the small thing rather than wanting to go in and deal with the huge thing, partially because we don't have the capacity yet.
Right. That makes sense.
Right. And so, like, I love that. I think the reason that you can even share those details with me is because you had the moment of gratitude.
Yeah.
And so, for a lot of clients, I find our work actually starts with them being able to find that first,
Mm.
right? Like,
Okay.
what's going well? What's happening that like is enjoyable in my life? Because it's
Yeah.
really easy, right? I'm not making enough money. My kids are probably nutty. My spouse ain't doing at all what I need them to do, right? I'm probably talking about my own life. Let me check that. But like, right, there's all these things, and it's like, but wait a minute. But wait a minute. And so sometimes the way we build capacity isn't because we plow through the details of the pain. Sometimes we build capacity by doing the thing that maybe offers us joy, that maybe connects us to those good feelings, to those exciting feelings, to like remind us like that we hold value outside of that negative experience, right? Going back to that I'm bad versus like I'm capable. I'm good. I'm good enough. I'm valuable. I'm worthy, right?
Yeah.
It's that juxtaposition of those things. And I think it's easier for us to start really dealing with the bad stuff when we can actually acknowledge the value we actually have too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I want to say more, but I don't have the words yet.
No, I like that a lot. Pointing out the physiology, I felt myself shaking as I'm telling the story.
Yeah.
It's something that I still deal with. Like the 1 year anniversary of that event, it's also my friend's anniversary of his wedding. And you talk about focus on the positive things. Like we thought about how beautiful the ceremony was, about how fun and how joyous the celebration was and the reception, and the time together, because we all live in different areas, or at least I live a lot farther from them, than they do from each other. But so I don't get to see them that often, like maybe once a year or every other year. And so we focused on the fun times that we had that weekend. Now I still like, there's times where that event bothers me, or I think about it, or think about like what I could have did differently. But either way, I like that you said that, like focusing on the gratitude first, because now that you say that, it makes sense to what really helped get over the hump, or like to be able to move forward.
Yeah.
It's focusing on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at you settling in.
All right.
It's starting to settle again. That's good. That's good.
All right. So, okay, let's step outside of therapy.
Okay.
All right. We did a deep moment, and we're here now.
Okay.
We're going to brush this off.
Shut it off. Yeah, shut it out.
All right. Okay. So let's get into work-life prioritization, because we've been talking about the busyness, and we're going to get on you because I want to learn from you, okay?
Okay. Let's hope I'm a good example.
Hey, everybody has things that you can learn from. You know what I mean? And like we said earlier, nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
So that's okay. So you started your own practice this year. First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Because it's so hard to get started sometimes. And one of the things to focus on is that like small steps. You took the step. You got started. You're going.
Yeah, we're going.
All right. So big congrats on that. You also have a daughter that's been doing a demanding dance program.
She is.
You know?
Was.
Yeah. And you coordinate with your husband, who also works full time. And on top of all of life's other challenges, everything that's thrown at us.
Yeah.
Can you share how you manage and prioritize all of that with starting your practice, growing a business?
Let's see. This will be a really nice moment for reflection for me, because my practice has probably been 3 years in the making.
Wow.
In that in my own work, I've been talking to my therapist, like, you know what, I really think I need to step out on my own. I really think there's something I want to offer. And she's like, okay, well, let's just work through what's holding you back and blah, blah, blah. And so finally earlier this year, I just like applied for the business name, did it. And then took me another 3 months to like do the next thing. And so then once it's rolling, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm in it. Business has started. I need clients. I need stuff. Like, where are the people? Let's go. And there was just this gentle reminder of like, won't that overwhelm you? And when you get overwhelmed, this is my therapist. I can literally hear her voice now. She's like, and what happens when you get overwhelmed? And I was like, oh, I run away. I shut down. I stop. And she's like, you were overwhelmed with just the process of getting it started. And you're going to overwhelm yourself again and have to possibly like stop in the middle. She's like, so what if it would be okay to just slowly build a client here, a client there over time? And literally, even now I can feel it. I could just feel everything like sink into the earth, like just go all the way down. I was like, oh, that's an option. Like, I don't have to just plow through it. And so it's in those moments where I find myself just being curious with myself of just like, is this a thing that I need to do right now? Right? Like, is this make or break? How will it, I just like to ask questions. And I find putting questions out there opens me up to be able to start to see more choice.
Yeah.
And so like we talked about the demanding program, like the dance program, and really trying to balance, like, is this actually fitting how we need it to fit now with where our house is, with where we're trying to go and grow. It's the same with my husband's job. Like, how are these pieces fitting? So I think when we talk about the marriage piece, the one thing that works best for us, I feel like I'm jumping a little bit, sorry, but the marriage piece, the one thing that works for us is we actually have quarterly, we call them business meetings, like State of the Union meetings. And so quarterly we sit down and we're just like, hey, where are you? Where am I? Have I supported you how you needed me to? What could be different in some general terms? And so we kind of do those check-ins. What's been happening with the girls? Are we needing to do something different? So those check-ins are really nice because it's like we're seeing things from two different perspectives.
Yeah.
So that's helped. And so over communication sometimes is better than none.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then learning when just to be like, I need rest. I need to stop. It's okay to not be busy. And a lot of that has just come through a lot of internal conversation of like, hey, you're snapping a little bit more. Like, I had to get acquainted with myself.
Right.
I had to spend time with myself of like, girl, you being a little feisty with the kids. That's not how we do things. Okay, we need to take a break. All right, girls, you go over there. Mama gonna take 15 and we'll come back in a minute.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And so I feel like I'm jumping a little bit, but the biggest thing has just been I've spent a lot of time with myself to be able to say, whoa, that's too much. Whoa, my physiology is like, I'm bracing for something. That's not okay. All right, let's stop. It's okay to pause. Right. Where are you at? Are you actually headed in the right direction? Do we need to pivot? And then becoming okay with the discomfort of those consequences. Right? Like, I'm going to make a choice. And although it may be beneficial for me and my family, it could inconvenience somebody else. And how do I hold space for all of it? How do I honor me doing what I know is best for us and honor, like, there's impact to you? Yeah. So I'm sorry. I just feel like I keep jumping. I don't know if that answered your question exactly.
No, actually, so you hit on multiple things that are extremely valuable.
Okay.
So rest.
Period.
I just did an episode on rest for episode 19. Rest. Because it's way too easy to get caught up in life, to get caught up in busy, to constantly move. I'm a victim of it. Very much. All day, every day. All right. And that's part of why I did that episode, but that's also like, that's always going to be an important factor. You have to give yourself rest, to recognize when you need rest, build awareness around yourself to know when you need rest. Cause I do recognize like I can see like in how I perform as a father, like in how I communicate and how I respond to things. My emotional intelligence and my ability to respond at a high emotional level is significantly improved when I'm well rested. Yep. When I'm tired,
it's done. I don't have nothing left. Yeah. And I think also we have to be aware too, and this is for anybody, rest is important, but we sometimes equate rest with laziness. Okay. And so if you know that's your thing, then you schedule rest, but you schedule it for a tolerable amount of time.
I like that.
Right? So don't plan to just cut your Saturday out. I'm going to sit on the couch and watch Hallmark Christmas movies. That's not the option for you. That's actually going to make you even more overwhelmed. Right. But schedule 15 minutes, right? Like I'm intentional about a 10-minute break, every 2 sessions, right? I need that moment, right? So something short, because we can get caught in, is this laziness because I'm not washing the dishes that are piled up in the sink? Right. No. right? It looks different for different people, but yes, rest is so important.
Oh yeah. Couple wise, you talked about communication.
Yeah.
I talk about communication all the time, so I don't even need to beat that up anymore. But I will just say it again.
Yes.
The ability to communicate, help each other.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be days where I don't have it and Brittany does.
Yep.
Or we both don't have it, and somehow we still got to get through this day.
Got to make it.
Man, Brittany is my teammate. I think of a relationship as a team. So I think that's important to point out, the communication, the team factor.
And this is a shameless plug. Go back and listen to the communication episode.
Man, communication, rest. It's there.
Listen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. From a business standpoint. All right. I love talking business.
Yeah, let's do it.
So what all went into starting your practice? How would you plan to take action along the way to where you are now? You talked about taking smaller steps to not overwhelm yourself. So what did your planning process look like for getting started?
So the first thing I did was reach out to my accountant because there's money involved in this.
Right.
And she does my taxes. She knows how well I manage it or don't manage it. And so I needed to know what that looked like. So she actually was really amazing. She literally sent me a checklist of everything that needed to happen. And so my first step was I needed to be excited about the project again. I felt like therapy for me, I was just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah.
And so the thing that got me excited was I spent time just drafting a name. Okay. And making sure that my name was available. Yep. So I did that, right? And I let that sit with me and I would say it out loud to people and I would just to give me a chance to like, that fits. That feels right. So I started there. And then from there, it was literally just, I would schedule time in my day where I would set aside 30 minutes of like, okay, we need to knock out this checklist. And she did a really nice job of putting it in literally step order for me. Okay. So I would be like, okay, I've got 30 minutes. My goal is these 3 steps. Now, I don't know how much it's going to take for me to do these steps because I've never done it. But so I would sit down and if I got all 3 done, great. If I didn't, whatever didn't get done, it's the first thing when I have my next set of 30 minutes to do it. Right. And so over time, I got everything done. And once I did all the legal stuff, it was like, I need a place. And I have to just be really honest. I was very blessed. A place kind of just fell in my lap. Somebody was like, we have like, it's 2 days a week right now, but we've got an office space that's like open. And I was like, okay. And they told me the rent and I was like, okay. And it's fully furnished. Say no more. When do I sign the paperwork? So that was really nice. And then from there, it was just, how do I want to present myself to the world? What do I want people to know about me as a therapist? Yeah. And so that took me a little bit of time and then drafting my like Psychology Today profile. And I have a really good friend who, designed like my business logo and cards and did that for me. And so I feel like we keep talking about these small incremental steps, but they feel so important.
One thing at a time.
Like you can know, like I knew in my mind, I needed the business. I wanted a practice. So I tell clients all the time, you can see the vision, but you look at the vision to remember the goal. And then you need to come back to the present to take the step.
Right? I like that.
Yeah. So we take a glance. We're not going to stare. But we know it's out there. Like the practice is out there. All right. Now I need to come back in and check off the boxes on the checklist. Let's get the business. Right. So I feel like I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it really is just one step at a time, one foot in front of the other.
So I want to bring attention to, you said the office space just fell in your lap. I am a firm believer that when you're pursuing what you're meant to do, the universe conspires.
It shows up.
The universe conspires to help you make that happen. Yes. Like when you find your passion, when you actually put it out there, when you start going for it and you communicate it and you find it, and you go for it, the universe wants to help you. I truly believe that.
Listen, I didn't even I was just like, this, I mean, when I tell you this space is absolutely perfect, I was just like, he was like, yeah, we've been looking. We couldn't find, I mean, they had been looking for months,
Yeah.
months, and could not find anybody. And I was like,
Here I am.
that's why you couldn't find anybody, because it was waiting for me. It was waiting for me.
Right.
And it's been, I absolutely agree with that. The universe has definitely been conspiring, because even in the slow process of building a caseload, clients, I've literally maybe added a client a week since I've started. Just slowly filling those slots.
Love it.
Yeah.
I always love to see the growth.
That feels good. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Oh, man.
Take a second. Just feel it.
Really?
All right.
Whew. This has been good reflection too. Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So I hate to like turn from the just
That's
positive
That's
enlightenment.
Okay. That's
Let's
okay.
talk about challenges.
Yes.
All right. Because hey, if we're going for something else, also going to be challenges. Now the universe is there to conspire for us, but it doesn't mean that there's not going to be obstacles. So what's one or two of your biggest challenges so far with building the practice? And then how'd you either overcome it or learn from it? Or if it's still ongoing and you're trying to get over it now, like what actions or steps are you taking to try to get through those challenges?
I think early on, especially when doing this paperwork, right? You got like tax paperwork and like corporation paperwork. It's so much paperwork. And at that time, financially, I just couldn't support paying someone to do it. Like that just wasn't the thing. And so there was an attention to detail that I didn't realize I didn't have until I got into it. And so we get into it and I'm like, okay, I think I can take clients. And then I politely get a letter in the mail telling me I didn't do something right. And I was like, okay, let me take all this back. I can't take clients yet. I'm not ready. So I went and I was like, I sat down, I asked for help. I asked for help. And even in the challenges, it was like, here's help. I knew where to go. I got it. It got done. So that was one that I was just like, oh man, here we are. Oh no, I'm going to owe the government $1 million. Oh yeah. You know, come tax time. And that was not the case. Thank goodness it's not the case. But that was one. And the other is I am in a practice where I don't have the capacity yet to take insurance. Okay. It just requires a lot of energy. And so in a private pay practice, I really have a heart to help people. And also we're in a time where maybe our finances don't really line up with all the things we want to do. Yeah. And so it's been a challenge in that sense of like, where can I still be able to like buy food for my family? Where can I still cover the expenses of the business, but also not be so unaffordable that I can't do the thing I really want to do, which is help people. So that's also been a really interesting process. And again, even in that moment of trying to figure it out, I asked for help. I sought counsel from folks who've been in this business, been doing it for times. And I'm like, how are you doing this? And so that's been helpful. And that's still something I'm sorting through every time I talk to somebody, of just like being able to say, hey, maybe I'm just not the best fit right now, because I also have to accept like this is the fee and my services are worth that. Yeah. And also I will never leave a person high and dry. So it's like, listen, let me give you some names though. Yeah. Let me help you get where you need to be. So that's still something I'm negotiating with myself of like, how will this really work? Should you take insurance? Should you do these things? So check back with me later. Oh, yeah. I might have an answer.
Oh yeah. But what I like is, first off, you have a heart of service, Yeah. I can see that in you. Like you just want to help people. I also want to point out here the importance of what you just said of I realize my value. Yeah. Like I have a service, and while I want to help people, like I also have a value. That you so I want to remind you all, like, don't sell yourself short. Don't lower your value for somebody else. Like you have to stay firm to what you believe you are worth. Okay, so I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's a very important thing to touch on. Yeah. So I also liked talking about seeking some mentorship. Yes. Because Even if we're building a business on our own, like it doesn't mean we're in it by ourselves. All right. So there are other people who have been there before,
They know.
and people like to help. People like to feel valued. You know, if you ask somebody for their advice or their input or their expertise, a lot of times they're going to feel honored that you thought of them, that you asked, for their advice or help. So I want to point out, don't ever think that you're inconveniencing somebody. Go for it. Ask a question. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid of that, because you can get some very valuable advice, input, guidance from mentors and coaches and other people. So ask the questions, like look for those people who have been there before. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yep.
I think we touched on it a little bit, but maintaining motivation. It's always easy to be motivated, I feel like, whenever you first start something out. Like when you first get it going, like the motivation's there. You're like, let's get started. You're pumped. Got it. Yes. That's probably like your most pumped, most motivated moment when you are pursuing a goal, business, any kind of new journey. There's that motivation in the beginning, but then that fades over time. And it can be hard to regain it, or to even find a consistent level in which you can, like, there's going to be some ups and downs, but like to fairly consistently maintain motivation along the journey. So for you, how do you kind of remind yourself to get back to that motivation, or like to maintain that motivation along the journey?
Good question. I think one, slow and steady has been helpful.
Yeah.
Slow and steady, just like building momentum rather than like just plowing through it and then overwhelming myself and needing to recover from it. I think that's really helped. I think it's been really nice to have moments like this. Like I've had lots of small moments where I've been able to check in with people and actually say like, whoa, I'm like doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like doing the thing.
Right.
And so just those moments, like, I feel like we started with gratitude. I feel like that's where I am now, is just like maintaining a heart of like, things will never be perfect. There is no version of that.
Yeah.
But man, I told you this business itself was 3 years in the making, right? And so like, look at where I am, right? 3 years. Wow. That's a long time when you think about it. But look at where I am, like taking clients, like staying busy. And so I think, again, for me, slow and steady has really helped me just like be able to really start to see how it unfolds, because again, I don't want to just plow through it and then I miss something. And then again, just checking in with people all the time, of like, man, here's where I am. And it's so much further than where I was. And so I am forgetful sometimes. So I actually will sometimes schedule moments where on my schedule, it's like, let's reflect. Like, let's do a check-in, a self-check-in.
I need some more of that.
Right. So then it puts me in a position where I have the time, because I can tell you there's never any time. There'll never be time if we never take it or make it or allow for it. And so just making little checkpoints so that I can go like, okay, look at where you are now. Look at where you started. Look at where you are. And you start to reflect in that way. You can see the progression.
Yeah.
And that has really helped to see 3 years ago, there was no business. And today there's business cards and clients and an office, right? And it's like, okay, girl, you might know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let's take another step.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that you build the confidence on this step, and then you say, okay, I'm ready to handle the next one.
Yeah.
I also like to say you have time for what you make time for. And that's all you'll ever have time for. Like, if you don't make the time for it, then you're never going to get around to it. Yep. It'll always be like, I'll get to that eventually. But if you don't plan it, if you don't put it on the schedule, you never get to it.
Nope. Everything goes on the calendar.
Right.
Everything.
All right. So we're kind of getting toward wrap up mode, which is sad because this has been such a great conversation.
This has been good. Thank you for having me. Really.
No, absolutely. one or two pieces, and I feel like we've already given like a ton of just great stuff, but one or two key pieces of advice you would give to anybody who's wanting to improve like their mental health and mindset?
It is a process. So slow and steady doesn't just work for building a business. Slow and steady will be therapy. And so it is a process of getting to know your clinician, getting to know yourself. And so just take the step. Your job is to take step one. Somebody is there to catch you. It will be okay. And also, it's okay to change therapists.
Mm.
If you try one and it is not working, you've given it a few sessions, try someone else. That's okay. Everybody's not a good fit for everyone. Like, I'm not a good fit for everybody, but I'm a good fit for somebody. And
I
those are
like
the
that.
people I want to pull in.
Yeah.
And there's a therapist out there that is fit for you at this point in your life. Seek them out and pivot if you need to. It's okay. It's okay. That's why we get trained so it's never personal. Like, we want you whole. And so go wherever you can get that. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, man, we covered so much, but also like I don't want to miss anything. Is there anything you could think of that I didn't ask, or anything that you think would be just important to talk about across the board of things that we talked about today that you think could help somebody? Because we've hit on the trauma, the mental health, the different kinds of therapy, on business and life prioritization.
Yeah.
From any of that, anything else
Mhm.
that you think might be helpful to share?
Rest. Will's right.
We're going back to rest.
Rest, period. Go back, find the episode, watch it, get some encouragement, and then rest.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I want people to be able to connect with you. So
Yeah.
where can they find you, and be able to reach out, ask questions?
Oh, that's a good question. So I have a Psychology Today profile. You just go in and type my name, and my whole profile will show up. That's at psychologytoday.com. Or you can email me at beginanewlou@gmail.com.
All right.
Yeah, that's the best ways to find me.
Okay. I'm going to put that in the show notes. That way, if anybody wants to reach out to Alaina, you can get
Come
to
on.
her. Absolutely incredible. Thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you for
All
having
right.
me.
You are
Seriously.
obviously so passionate about what you do. I can tell you do a great job of helping and working with people. So thank you for sharing your knowledge, your
Yeah.
experience. I know that this is going to help people. Thank you all for tuning in. Share this because I promise you somebody needs it. There's far too many people dealing with some kind of trauma in their lives that don't don't plan the time, don't make the time to get around to actually dealing with it. And you will live a much more fulfilled life if you take the time for it, and if you can make that progress for your life. So make sure that you all like, subscribe, share it. I guarantee it'll help somebody. Comment with your thoughts and questions, and let's grow together.